Hey everybody, it's Kevin Urrutia here, founder of Voy Media and on Digital Marketing Fastlane. I have a very special guest today, Dean Newlund. Hey Dean, how's it going?
Hey, excellent, Kevin. Good to see you again, buddy.
Dean has a podcast as well. I'll be on it in a few weeks. So Dean, what's your podcast again?
Business of Intuition. It's actually airing. I'm not sure this is going to air beforehand, but it's airing on the 2nd of February. But people can always go to our website to find it, or all the other places that you would normally go.
That's how we connected and then we got to chatting. Maybe tell our listeners a little about yourself and kind of your background.
How far you want to go back?
I saw that you were an actor. What were you sort of thinking at that time, maybe? Where did that lead you to?
Back in those days, I mean, theater and acting and directing and certainly writing was a big part of my life. This was back in way back, late 80s, early 90s, so I'm really dating myself.
I think that's when I was born. I think you graduated.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I could be your father, right? Right about when you were still in diapers, I was going into graduate school.
Pretty much, yeah.
What I learned about being an actor and a director and a writer was a tremendous amount of ability to self-reflect, kind of understand what makes me tick. And in so doing, through the characters that you have to portray, you understand what motivation is. And so it's not a textbook understanding about motivation. Hey, read Daniel Pink and you can go into all of that, or you can read any other number of resources. But this was like, now we have to put on the coat. You got to really be a person who is motivated to do something and understanding human dynamics. And theater was a great boot camp for me. I thought it was going to be something I would do for a long period of time. What I ended up realizing is that I took to teaching even more so than I did to acting. And at the time, it scared the living bejesus out of me because I thought, I'm not supposed to be a teacher. I'm supposed to be an actor. I'm supposed to make this my career. But eventually what happened after some events and a short-term marriage and working in other places, I was able to very fortunately go through a year-long coaching program because I was still interested in this self-exploration and understanding how human dynamics work. I needed it in work situations to be able to motivate people. So after that coaching program, which lasted about a year. And this was back in the days when coaching was not popular, considered to be an athletic endeavor. I was once on this radio show. This gal said, okay, Dean, so thanks for being on our radio show. What professional sports teams do you coach? And I went, wait a minute. I don't coach athletes, I coach business people. So that's what got the ball rolling, was this coaching practice that got me into being an entrepreneur. And it was a huge risk. I had no family members that knew how to do this. But I'm really glad that I did, because they kept growing and building and expanding and my growth. That's kind of what brought me into this business. And we're now on our 28th year doing pretty well. We've been around and we've worked locally, nationally, internationally. We've done a lot of work with Fortune 5 companies and nonprofits and universities. And we got a solid, strong team. We're expanding, if I can believe it, even in this day and age with COVID. So pretty quick question to what could be a very long answer.
You were doing acting back then. And if you really think about it now, a lot of people, I'm not sure how many people are like, oh, I want to go into acting or theater. But if you think about kind of in the world that we live in now, those skills that you've had or learned are so important, because everything now is really about acting, theater, podcasting, learning how to speak, learning how to talk. Being on camera is something that, for me, my parents, oh, I never want to be on camera. But now kids are just grow up on camera. They look natural on camera. And just 2 weeks ago, I was on recording a course for a company. My social media person, Paula, she's just like, Kevin, you're talking like this is normal, but then once you sit down and you have all the lights on you, you clam up. You got to just chill. I never knew that's when you have to learn. Basically, I'm going on YouTube and searching how to act. You got to relax. Wilson, my co-founder, he saw the video. That's not you. That's a different person. Now everybody goes on camera, which is so crazy to think about.
It's such the currency of communication these days. I mean, more about this than I do with your company, but executives in the baby boomer era are just not used to it. And they're now, because of COVID and being locked down, they're beginning to do their own little mini TED Talk. There's a CEO that does a Todd Talk that we work with, and he says it off to the people in his organization and to the public. It is a medium that we have to pay attention to. You guys know this. You guys are so creative what you do. You have to be able to get into the medium of the day, and the medium of the day is video, and is doing this sort of stuff. And even with COVID and being on Zoom calls or WebEx calls, it is almost the closest you will get to being on film, because you are, in a sense, having to see yourself sometimes and see the other people in these little boxes. I think that now we're slowly getting the acumen up about how we can behave in this rather weird, disconnected environment.
The webcam right in the middle, but is that where it should be in the world that we're at, or should it be somewhere else? And honestly, the biggest thing that gets me is sometimes when you look at yourself, it's reversed like a mirror. And other
Yes.
times it's not. I hate that way I look. It's a very psychological thing. But anyways, obviously going back to the executive coaching, how were you getting your first few customers for the people listening? And I think you mentioned radio. Obviously, was like that something that you were doing before? Radio, newspaper ads. Is that sort of how stuff was done?
Up until recently, the way we found clients is the way we found clients for many, many years, was
Yeah.
really just through relationships. We were talking before we hit the record button, was I was telling a story about a guy that I was keeping in touch with for 2 years, and then he became a client. It's relationships. It's that interpersonal, high touch connection that you have with somebody, letting them know what you're about in the context of how you can be of use to them. The brand is not about me so much, it's about more about being of service. I want to give service even if I'm not paid for it, because eventually it's going to come back to
Yep.
me. I just sort of feel that way. And if it doesn't, that's fine. You just pay it forward. But I always want to do something for somebody, whether it turns into business or not. And that's how the business grew. It isn't until just recently, like in the last year, that we started really getting our marketing together, our assets together, and getting better at videos and business cards and all that kind of stuff. In fact, I just got a huge box full of stuff that came today that we're going to give off to clients. And then we'll start doing pay-per-click ads and all that. That's the first time in 28, 29 years
Wow.
we've ever done any advertising. And
That's
we're
crazy.
long overdue. But how I started was just one-on-one, knowing people, sitting down with them, a lot of coffees, and getting to know what they're about, making it about them. And then I will share down the road what we can do to help them out. But I never start off talking about myself. I always
Yeah.
try to figure out about the other person.
That's so important too for people to know how you can help them, because I think that's in general, at least for us with marketing, people always know what's in it for me. Everybody always thinks about themselves first. You need to at least appeal to them. At least for me, when I think about people, I'm like, okay, I know this person here. He can help me if I need to raise a company. And it's so important to know what those type of friends are, those people can do for you, because that's how you're thinking about it. I know a great iOS developer. If I need him, I know, hey, he's an iOS developer. I need a great web designer. Crazy how we categorize people. So it's important for someone else to know, how can you help them? That way,
Yes.
when in case they need it, it's very interesting because that's how people introduce themselves. This is my friend Tom. He's a web designer. Your job defines who you are, but I guess
Yeah.
that's how it is. Yeah. Obviously, I told you what I do. People always ask me, how did you introduce yourself? I don't even know sometimes. It's like, I don't know. I do podcasting, depending on the audience.
We've got billions of bits of information coming at us every day. It's kind of like going out into a snowstorm and you have all those little pieces of snow coming at your head. So attention is so hard to get right now when we have so much being asked of us. And so then it becomes, then why do I pay attention to you versus somebody else? And that's not even just social media. That's not even just the news. That's just everywhere we go. We're always being bombarded with, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, whether it's an ad, whether it's a tweet, whatever it is.
Yep.
And so then what cuts through that? And I think one of the things that cut through that is authenticity. Is that if you can speak from the heart, if you can speak as a human being to somebody else and draw that connection, all of a sudden your present moment experience with them becomes something that's unlike what they're getting with anybody else. And now all of a sudden, like, oh, I feel great being around Kevin. Kevin's such an authentic guy, and I feel like myself, and I can explore myself with him. I want to work with him, not just because he can do something for me, but because I like hanging with the guy. That's when business starts getting fun.
I know I have a lot of friends where let's just work together because it's so fun to just beat around. Okay, cool. Let's go get food after because we can talk about something random, right? I'm curious to know, when you were sort of starting this journey, obviously you mentioned earlier that you didn't know anybody that. How did you start? I think at least for a lot of people, they get overwhelmed by, do I need an LLC? Did you think about all that stuff in the beginning? Or was it, I'm just going to go? What were you feeling?
Just talking to my son about this. He wants to start up a little business. And I was telling him that I made a lot of mistakes, and I still do. But in the very, very beginning, I remember it was all about just simply getting the sale. It was about getting the next client. I worked out LLCs and S Corps and C Corps, and all that kind of stuff happened in my bookkeeping and in QuickBooks. The advice I always gave these people when I was working with smaller businesses was, know what you're really good at. What's your sweet spot? What is that recipe that makes you sing? It's sort of like the hedgehog concept you hear about in Good to Great. What is the stuff that you do really, really well, that you love to do? And I really hone that, get to know that. A lot of people start businesses just on that because they love to cook, they love to do web design, they love to build cars, you name it. That's their passion, that's their expression. And so you should do that. But you also have to take a look at the business side of running a business. There's accounting, there's accounts payable, there's the whole infrastructure, there's the structure of your company, all those things that a lot of people say, I don't want to do that crap.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to do business for. And a lot of them just don't succeed because they don't either get the help to do that side, or when they do it themselves, they so resist it that they don't do it well. And I happen to be one of those people that kind of like doing both. I wouldn't say that, Dean, guess what? You get to spend 2 days working in QuickBooks. I kind of go, I don't think that would be my thing, but I enjoy it enough to want to understand it and to be able to build a system around it and then give it to somebody else. So I think that for me, the advice was know your passion, do it really well, better than anybody else, but get help or learn how to do all the other parts of a business. When you bring those two together, now you've got a fighting chance.
That is such great advice, because even for me too, I always tell people I like doing the sales, the talking to people, the podcasting, the video stuff. That's exciting for me. I hate doing the accounting stuff. My brother helps with a lot of the finances, so he does it all for me. He's like, Kevin, this is what we're doing. This is the accounting we're hiring. And then just today, we had like a tax planning call with our accountant. And then my brother's on the call leading it. Let me know what you want Kevin to do. It's so important to find people that are good at what they do, because the stuff that you hate, there's probably somebody out there that loves doing it. Oh my God, who loves accounting? Kids go to school for accounting. There's hundreds of accountants out there.
I know.
People love this stuff. So you'll find those people.
And there are people that not only love doing accounting, but they love being the number two to a number one. They don't have to have all the limelight. I got a person on my team who's like that. Our personalities, if you were to do sort of like one of those assessments, is very, very different. But thank God for Mel, because she balances out my big ideas and my social connective interests and all that. You know, I'm the visionary. She's the one that makes it happen. She does the books. She does all the finance. In fact, I just got an email from her about our taxes today, right? Thank God that she likes to do that. I mean, like, I appreciate that. I would not be able to do that full time. And you have to surround yourself with people who do what you don't do well, and then to trust them to do it.
I think there's a few key things there. First, I also have one person like that on my team. Literally, when you were saying that, I know my person on the team.
Who that is?
I have Agnes on the team who does that. Any of my crazy ideas, she'll take them down, write them down for me. This is how we're going to execute. Hey, I want to hire this person. Let me go pull up the finances of the last 6 months and see how we can hire this person. The key thing here, you need to trust them and empower them to do the thing. A lot of first-time founders that I talk to, I'm the only one that can look at my finances. I'm the only one that can manage. You need to trust somebody, or else you're never going to grow. You need to give people access to stuff, bank accounts. I don't want to be paying contractors every single time. I need someone that I can trust, that's going to be going to my bank account and saying, I'm paying them. And yes, everybody hears horror stories of how someone's stolen, but that's so rare. And you cannot build a company without trust that everybody in the company wants to be better. You need to trust these people on your team.
It's a great point, Kevin. And when you asked me about big mistakes earlier before we started this conversation, your point about trust is really well taken. The trust that you have in other people, because that's the way you grow and scale. And it's the community you want to surround yourself with. It feels good when you're around people you can trust, and they like it as well. On the other hand, or in addition to that, I should say, is you have to trust yourself. And what I mean by that is sometimes you need to, I'm going to maybe do a little segue plug for the podcast that I do called The Business of Intuition. But there are times when your intuition may tell you that something doesn't feel right in your business, and you have to follow it. I've had some experiences, and I think any business person has, when they didn't want the conflict, and yet their intuition told you something is afoot, something doesn't feel right.